All right, welcome back. This video, we're going to look at getting the ball to hopefully start moving. We're going to just get it bouncing sort of back and forth straight across. We won't worry about the deflection at the moment. The deflection will require a little bit of trigonometry, which we'll get to. But the first thing we'll do is we'll actually get the ball to instantiate, because we need it to be, in the scene. At the moment, if we remember, we put it in the prefabs. Okay, there's our ball sitting there. I believe it did have the ball script, which we'll get to. The other thing that we had was our game, and sometimes we call it sort of like a game manager. You know, it's something that's sort of watching the game. It's not really in the game per se. You don't see it as a physical game object, but it's there. And in this case, one of the things it's going to do is hold onto the ball in a way and instantiate it. So we're going to do that first. So in order to do that, let's open up our game script. Okay, so either you've got it probably in your scripts, hopefully. So just double click on that, and that should take you to MonoDevelop. And we'll just do a little bit of coding. So first thing that we're going to do is we need to make a reference to that game object. And so I'll do that right at the top. And we can make it private because it's it will find it itself. So game object, and we'll call that the ball. And what we're going to do is we'll just leave update there for now. We'll create our own function and we'll call it spawn ball. Okay, and so this function here will instantiate the ball when it's called. So first of all, we're going to define what the ball is, and the ball is going to be a game object, and we're going to instantiate it. I can spell, there we go, instantiate. And so what we're going to instantiate is a game object, and we're going to grab that from the resources folder. So resources dot load, and then we have to find the proper folder there. So in quotations here, prefabs /ball, and so that should find the ball in the resources folder and in the prefabs folder subfolder, and then of the specific type ball, and then that's going to be a type of, and then we have to say it's a game object. And hopefully we can close all that up. There we go, 3 of them at the end. Okay, so that's going to instantiate it, and then we need to locate it. So we're going to take that ball, and right away we're going to transform its local position, like we did before. Local position. There we go, it just needs to be capitalized there. And we're going to set it to a new vector 3, and we're going to just put it right in front of the I guess the non-player, the computer paddle there. So new vector 3, oops, so it should be 12, 0, and -2. All right, so we can just double check that it instantiates it. So let's save that up. Go back to Unity. And obviously nothing will appear here. Just to talk a little bit about, we noticed that we had our folder called resources and one called prefabs. So just make sure that your spelling matches up and that there's ball in there. Capitalization, of course, is important. And it should be able to instantiate. So hit play. Oh, end of file. Oh, I forgot to close up my new function I made. And while I'm at it, why wouldn't it appear here? Give you a second to think about that. So the reason why it wouldn't be appearing is that even though we created a function called spawn ball, I never called it. Now the question is, where should I call it? Should I call it the start? Should I call it the update? Well, yeah, in the end we're going to have to be a little bit more specific, but definitely we want the ball there at the beginning. So I'm going to put spawn ball here. Okay, so I'm going to call that function. Without doing that, nothing would have appeared, and I would have had to go and correct this. If I put in the update, you're going to end up with about 40, 50, 60 balls a second. Probably not where you want to put it. So make sure it's in the start function there. Hit save, go back, and now hopefully there's no error. And then the second thing is it should, when I hit play here, should appear right there. Yep, and there it is. Okay, so it's not going to move obviously at the moment. There's no script on it to make it to move, but it is appearing on our game as we begin. So that now our ball is appearing, we need to get it to move. So of course I'm going to go into the ball script. So under here, there's the Ball01, and we'll open that up. And once that's open there, we're going to do a few things. First thing is we're going to create a public variable called move speed, and we'll call it public so that we can modify that easily. And you could even think about modifying it later in the game as well. So public, when we get a float, we'll call it move speed. And again, just as a number here, this is a float, we'll put 12.0 F. Okay, we're going to do one more, and that's going to be a public vector2, and this will be our ball direction. And for the moment, we'll just set that to a vector2.left. So it's going to move to the left here. Okay, so from the sort of the computer paddle off to the left towards our player paddle, and so we'll set that there. We're going to create a new function called move, and void move. And again, this is just the whole idea of trying to get it away from putting everything in the update function. So we're actually going to call the move function in update, just kind of like we did the sort of that create ball function. We called it from the start function. This time, the move one was going to be update because it's going to be constantly moving, but we're going to transform. So we're going to access the transform, and change its local position. And we're going to go plus equals because we're going to be changing it basically every frame here. One thing that we have to do is vector, so that local position is a vector3, so we have to transform or cast our ball direction here, our vector2, into a vector3. So just by putting parentheses around that, that will cast ball direction into a vector3. Basically, it just sets our, that third axis to 0. It doesn't really affect it. But anyways, we're going to times it by the move speed. And whenever we times anything sort of by, updating every frame, usually we want to multiply it by time dot delta time. And that just sort of smooths out the movement there, bases it on time rather than the computer speed. So again, this here wouldn't do anything until we call it. So that's why I'm going to put it right in here, move there. So it ain't going to be a great game yet. It's just going to simply play straight across. So I hit save there, go back into Unity. When I hit play, two things should happen. The ball should appear, and it should start moving across the screen. So let's just make sure that that happens. Sure enough, there it is, and it keeps going. Okay, so I mean, the ball's just going to keep going like that forever. We have to be able to detect the paddle, and so not only that, we have to be able to, detect where the paddle is, or what the paddle height is, I guess in this case, as the paddle moves, and so on. So we'll look at that next. So to check for that collision, what we're going to do is go back to our ball script here, and we're going to create another function here. But this time, instead of returning void, we're going to return a true or false. So we're going to return a Boolean. So the bool here, and I'm going to call this check collision. And so we'll just do that. Okay, we'll close up. Now, at the moment, we're not going to put any scripts in there because we've got to create a bunch of variables. And so what I'm going to do is come up here, and we're going to create a few private ones, and actually quite a few. So first thing, they're all going to be floats, and I'm just going to break these up a little bit. The first set, what we'll do is we'll do the player paddle width. So we're just going to go through. Actually, I'll make this a small p here just to be consistent. So I'll do that player paddle width, and I'm just going to put a comma because we can do a bunch of them here. Player paddle height, And then I'm going to do the same thing with the computer. So computer paddle width and computer paddle height. And so this will give us the ability, obviously, to know what they are. Now you might say, well, at the moment they're the same. Why don't we just put one, just paddle width and paddle height, two variables there? Well, the idea is maybe later on you're going to have some power-ups, or you're going to be able to change the difficulty of the game by modifying these. So we created separate ones just to give you the ability to add functionality later on. Now, we have to keep going here. Part of it is the position that we have to deal with, so we know its size at the moment. So I'm going to create a few more here. So float again. This time player paddle. I should actually probably put that on. Copy and paste there. I'm going to do the min x, and then I'm going to do player paddle. We can spell it min y, and then basically the same thing, but for the max. So player paddle max, x, and player paddle max y. I'm going to copy that. Oops. And do basically the exact same thing, except change all the players to a computer. Okay, so I've got computer paddle min. Don't know why it's not happy with me. I think it'll be okay. Computer paddle min y. There we go. I think we should be fine there. There we go. Okay, and so that gets us most of the paddle stuff. So min x, min y, max x, max y. Good. Computer and player paddles. And then the last thing we'll do is put some values for the ball as well. So ball width and the ball height. I could have put those all in one single line, but I thought it would be a little bit easier so we can be able to see them instead of them going off the screen, and then they're kind of grouped logically there. The last thing, so they're not measurements anymore, because those are basically all the measurements of the objects. We've got to create references to the player paddle and the computer paddle as well. So I'm going to create another private here. There'll be game objects, and there'll be the paddle player and the paddle computer. Good. All right, so that gets all these variables created. We'll sort of leave that here in this video, and then we'll be able to actually use them in the next video to work on our check collision. Okay, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of sort of what we're going to do to make sure that we can detect the collision between the ball and the paddle. So we'll end it here. Make sure you save it, and we'll see you in the next video.